So I received a lot of positive feedback about the first 15 minutes of yesterday's recap, so I thought I would record a video uh, following a similar exercise for today, Friday, July 28th, but this time do it ahead of the open rather than during the recap. So we know that today sellers have potential to be active at initial resistance, although the overnight session has been relatively strong. And we know that if the market breaks above initial resistance, sellers can still be active at the next zone. But in order for that trade to work, we would need to see a move back below the initial resistance zone. So the way I want to set up my trade at the next zone is to have my scale out be above 3/4, because holding above 3/4 leaves the intraday bias as bullish. So 10/4 is going to be the entry. The stop, I'm going to make it a bit more selective and push it up to 19. And on the downside, if sellers do step in, then I want to see a break below initial resistance, so I can leave my high probability target at 77/4, and the final is fine at 72.75, at least for now. And of course, these things can and should be adjusted once the market is open and we have more information. Now, looking at the initial resistance zone, we can see that 97.5 gives us 3R, and that makes perfect sense. That's perfectly fine. The overnight high is 98. So if you submitted this trade in the overnight session, you would be filled and your scale would be 90.75. So let's go ahead and at least put this on and we'll review it later. And let's submit this one as well. And then on the downside, pre-market support calls for caution. So I think this one I'm not going to submit. The initial support zone still has potential to hold. It's the balance area low. Again, with our short-term bias being neutral, there are certain trades that I wouldn't necessarily submit in advance. I would wait for the market to get there. Given the strong bearish move from yesterday, if ES fails at initial resistance, there would be the potential for a larger time frame pullback continuation pattern coming into play, in which case the initial support could get taken out. So I think that it makes sense to exercise caution at initial support today. And as far as the high probability target goes, I think it's better to assume the initial resistance zone holding for the day if we go down to initial support. So I think we need to be more selective on our targets here. I'm going to make this 77/4. So the broken pre-market support, and the final I'm going to make 87.5. Recalculate the entry. That gives us 58.75. I am comfortable with that. So these are going to be the orders that are put in advance of the open. And then as far as pre-market support goes, you can see that this trade really only works if the intraday situation remains bullish. So I'm going to go and change this to 87.5 as the high probability, and the final target I will make the initial resistance zone. So that gives us a 73/4 as a potential 3R entry. Now again, pre-market support being the more aggressive area of support, I think it makes sense to not submit that type of trade in advance. It's better to wait and see how the market approaches that area. Now, what happens if we break out above 46, 1575, and 1875? Well, sellers may still step in at the next zone, if nothing else, just for a response back down into the 1875 and 1575 area. So in this case, I want my high probability target to be the top of initial resistance, and I'm going to want my final target in this situation to be 03.5 in advance of the broken initial resistance zone, and that gives me a 30/4 entry that I would also be comfortable submitting in advance. And of course, depending on the intraday situation, time of day, I may cancel this. For example, if the market is testing the 24 half to 34 half area in the afternoon, late afternoon, then I would be canceling those orders because I personally do not trade Friday afternoons. So just a quick little video to show you the exercise, the thought process that goes into setting the pre-market setups within Vulcan Trader. And of course, Vulcan makes the whole process very easy, very straightforward. And for those of you who are using Vulcan, you can plot those orders on the chart itself. So, when you're plotting orders and you're adjusting targets and whatnot, you can visually see what that looks like and does it make sense. So, as a quick example, if we look at our initial resistance order, this is what that looks like, right? Entry at 97.5. We're scaling out at 90.75, which is just above some of these little tails down here. And our high probability is 77.25. Looking at it visually, you might say, well, maybe it is a good idea to slide that up a little bit into the mid area. Maybe we should make it 79.25, right? So let's go ahead and do that. 79.25 being the high probability, and then the final is 64.75, and you might want to actually adjust that to be 65 or 66, because visually we can see that even though this is support, when it comes to targets, you don't necessarily need to get the absolute perfect exit, especially on a Friday heading into the weekend. So visualizing the trade and then making small tweaks and adjustment can be a very powerful thing as well, and it can really give you a little bit of extra edge. So that really is the power of Vulcan Trader, and for those of you who are using NinjaTrader 8, I would definitely check it out. Good trading and good luck today.